And the funny thing, and the tragedy perhaps, is all the political parties coming to a place talking about the state without reforming themselves. You are not transparent within your party. You would like to see the state and governance to be transparent. That's simply contradictions. What I think problem is about with the larger political parties, they do not reflect the views of the new generations in many cases. Every day the street goes underwater for 8 to 10 hours every day. There is no school. Whole generation is illiterate. In 2025,
how are you funding your campaign? And since this is the first time you're running for a parliamentary seat,
reaching out, campaigning becomes so expensive that simply there is no other way to extortion. And for the first time in Bangladesh history, we had a presidential debate model, public debate.
Since you've brought the topic of social media, let me go a little bit deeper into this. You're fairly a popular figure on social media. Millions watch your video. You also mentioned the Zoran Mamdani effect. But my question to you would be, in our context, how should we read the social media popularity? Can social media performance translate into actual voter traction in your area or across Bangladesh?
I think there are some distinctions have to be made, like between the Mamdani while playing in New York, a mature democracy in a first world country, high-tech social neighborhood, very fairly middle class of the nation, to Bangladeshi context. But still, within Bangladesh, we need to distinguish between the rural and urban setup. We need to have a distinction between the youths, social media users, and the not users. We need to have the distinction between the very old school voters and the new generation aspiration. So what I will say that yes, there are some serious potential for those popularity to be transformed and translated into election. From my own experience in Borishal 3, Babuganj Muladi, I do not have an organization there. After 32 years, I went to village. So much of a disconnect for me and my rural areas. Yet, every village I go to, every bazaar I visit, every mosque, school, colleges I go to, I see large number of people are already familiar with my existence through social media, through Facebook and YouTube. So that also gives me an added value that I don't need to spend a lot of money to get known. I don't need to print a lot of posters and banners and festoons. I don't need to spend a lot of money into campaign. It becomes so easy because only if I am going somewhere and people knows it, large number of educated social media users, online user people come to watch me and listen to me. So that's an added value. Now, of course, election is a different challenge, no doubt about it. There is a mafia style, old school political settlement in every village. There is a client patron criminal gang in every bazaar, by every river and the business hubs. So these are challenges things, but of course I see over the time they shall become the minority. Those older school voters and the older school political settlement users will become minority. And our position, if we stay on the right course of honesty, integrity, and accountability and pro people, then certainly I hope those popularity, those viewers and listeners shall be transformed into real voters for change.
But there's still room for small parties. Small parties often make their way into the parliament by aligning themselves with a larger political force. And historically, that's how new actors break through into the parliament in Bangladesh or elsewhere in the world. And one of the most common strategies is forming a coalition which could take different shapes and forms. It could be electoral alliance, it could be issue-based cooperation or issue-based movement. What is your thought process behind who to take as a coalition partner? And if I may add a layer to it, one of our viewers asked, what would it take for Barrister Fuad to join one of the larger parties to serve the country better?
Well, I think problem is about with the larger political parties, they do not reflect the views of the new generations in many cases. And the things we talk about, the status quo we challenge, the institutions that to be reformed, the issues that we raise to public attentions, they often stay quiet about those things. So an overhauling of the whole political system, where the reform is the essence of the agenda, we always felt that the old school political parties shall not become so eager to comply with those sentiments. And that's the very essence that why in 2020 we established a new political party. In 2019, in fact, the year before, we formed a political platform called Jano Akankhar Bangladesh, Bangladesh as aspired by people. We held around 1,200 meetups across the country, publicly, in the rooms, in the community centers, in restaurants, and in the overseas, where large expatriate community lives within the Middle East and Far East, and of course in the Western countries as well. We visited number of countries where the new politics emerged, like in India, the Aam Aadmi Party, Imran Khan's Tehreek-e-Insaf, AK Party in Turkey, Erdogan's rise into power, in Tunisia, in Indonesia, how new political parties became so relevant and so visible, what make them connected to the people. So we try to understand those things as well. So, and we found that the old political parties shall not be able to reflect on those issues because they are simply quite comfortable where they are now, with the large vote banks, with the status quo, with a settled political settlement, you can say. So we are in a position of challenging the old school politics and political settlement. So it shall not simply happen because I do not want to throw the bin onto the streets. I would like to set up a litter bin. Then option is one against the other. Whether you are quite used to with how you are walking through the streets and throwing bins here and there, or you stop it, set up a new litter bin where the bins can be put in. So we found that old school shall not materialize our dreams of change and nation building. And with regard to the issues about old political parties and alliance, I think there's two different things that to be understood. One is about politics, political alliance. One is about the voting alliance, purely election-based. So once comes to politics, we are not prepared to align with any other political parties who doesn't go with the value system that we stand by. So that becomes a part of the political alliance. And that was also reflected when we had a pro-democracy movement, the anti-fascist movement during the last 4 or 5 years. We did not align to any political parties, including BNP or Jamaat. But we were in the streets. We had a coalition meetups. We sat together with different parties, how to form tactical programs and how to be visible on the streets. But we never formed an alliance. So we are equally of the same position that we do not want to form a political alliance with the old political parties, rather stay on course through the July political parties, the younger political parties who are really for change in terms of their politics. That doesn't mean that we are not prepared to have an alliance of votes. Voting alliance is a different thing, and that conversation is still on board, still going on with BNP, with Jamaat, with the other political parties at different places on issue base, on a seat basis, constituency basis. And I think it shall go on for next 2 months or so. So there's a two different thing. With the politics is about change, and new political alliance has to be formed, or even not formed. We shall be having a conversation of votes and elections separately.
You speak of reform. In fact, you are one of the most vocal advocates of reform, constitutional, political, and administrative. But reforms are never straightforward. They evolve, they get stalled, they often get diluted. We are recording this in early December. Are you happy with where our reforms stand at this point in time? If not, what are some of the areas that you're not satisfied with?
Well, I think my reaction is mixed. There are areas that I am quite happy. See, for a nation so divided in Bangladesh, there is no single issue that everybody agrees to in Bangladesh. Not a single issue that everybody agrees to in Bangladesh. Now see, in that context, every political parties, the anti-fascist political parties, pro-democracy political parties, sat together at the Consensus Commission for days and weeks and months to discuss about the countries. Never happened in the country. You haven't seen all political parties in one platform. Never in the last 5 decades or so. This is the first time happened in our history. So this is a historical achievement, I will say, that we sat together. Second is about, when the political alliance happens in Bangladesh, it happens for two reasons. Either to win an election for votes purely, or for a street movement to bring down a government from power. This is the first time the political parties sat together to discuss about nation, to discuss about country, to discuss about reforms, institutions, how to move forward. This is the first time in our history. Or everybody sat together and we talked for hours and without any fighting in between. So that's a historic achievement. We have a July Charter, pretty much agreed on a lot of issues. There are note of dissent, no doubt about it, from different political parties. But it's still a historic achievement way forward that we had. On the other hand, with regard to the other question you also asked earlier, that if we could have a national unity government last year, under the leadership of Yunus, both a mixture of technocrats and from political parties, for 3 to 5 years, we could have done even better, reforming institutions. We have now agreed what needs to be done. Rather, we could have done what needs to have been done, straight way, without forming any commissions. These people would be part of the cabinets, get things decided and implemented straight way. So that could have been much better. That was what we expected earlier. It didn't happen, but that's the national struggle. There's a lot of expectations and aspiration. And of course, it's not a military style revolution like happened in Cuba or Iran or or Bolivia or any other countries. We would like to see everybody, like the Ubuntu, together, slowly, but steadily, we move forward with the reforms. So yes, not everything happened, but things we have achieved is certainly praiseworthy, and we'd like to see much more things in the coming months after the election to be made visible.
So it may not have been perfect, but like you said, it is historic, it is the beginning, and it will evolve over time. Now I'll go to another dimension of politics, which is the practical side, which gets hardly any attention. Campaigns cost money, and transparency in this space is often complicated. So I want to talk about finances. How are you funding your campaign? And since this is the first time you're running for a parliamentary seat, how expensive the whole process is?
Well, I think over the last few years, there's a lot of discussion about reforms, about the redesigning, reorganizing the statecraft, the institutions. And the funny thing, and the tragedy perhaps, is all the political parties coming to a place talking about the state without reforming themselves. That's the funny thing about. And I talked about it on many occasions, including when BNP had launched the 31-point reform propositions of their own party, where the acting chairman was there through online. And all the major political party leadership were there as well. So I talked about it. How come nobody is talking about reforming themselves? Without reforming own self, we are dreaming to reform the institutions, to reform the state, to reform the nation, to reorganize and redesign statecraft. And within the larger scale, I always talk about that the three major reforms need to be happened within political parties. One thing is about leadership, how leadership is chosen through election in every units of the political party. And if the members of that unit or that party decides that we no longer have that confidence on that leader, he or she must go. So that leadership selection process needs to be transparent. One thing about the AB party is that we had a proper election. Early January, February, we had a council. Our three candidates stood. And for the first time in Bangladesh history, we had a presidential debate model, public debate. Our three candidates for chairmanship had openly debated in front of the cameras, online, our social media presence. So that was historic. I myself was part of the election process. So both chairman and the secretary was elected by the party council. And the party member and the council delegates have the power to remove us as well. There is a process that if they have no confidence that we can seriously take the party forward, they can remove us. So that party leadership selection is very critical. And the irony is, most of the political party leaders are not elected, yet they would like to see democracy flourish in the country without practicing democracy themselves. And that's why we have seen elections after elections happening in the country, yet there is no democratic values developed within the party and within the nation and within the political activists. They still behave like the tribal members of the medieval 16th or 17th century. They still behave like the client-patron tribal mechanism, old school style, the Dickensian London society where the money has been exchanged for votes and leadership. Second type of reform that is very critical within the political party is about dissent, where the political party leaders can disagree with the party leaders and their policies and still become part of the party without any fear of removal or being sidelined. That needs to be openly engaged. Within the AB party, we have a resolution that any member of our party can openly disagree with the party position, make it public, and still become part of the policy-making body. They have to just say, this is the party position, I do not agree with it, this is my position. And there are many occasions the party chairman and I, party secretary, disagree on many things, on public, on record. And this is the kind of a democracy we'd like to see happening within every political party and throughout the nation. And the problem is about the tragedy of not having this. Within the political parties, there is no dissent, there is no disagreement. Everybody is oiling to the leaders, only agreeing, only consented yes by yes brother, yes leader. Yet they would like to see dissent in the country. They would like to see multi-opinion made nation vibrant. So those kind of things is making a contradictions within us, within the political parties and running the statecraft. And that's why you'll see every time a party comes to power, they're always eager not to allow the dissents grow, to suppress the dissents, to suppress the difference of opinions through the Digital Security Act or any other mechanism, a Special Power Act or magistracy, whatever it is. That needs to be changed within the party reforms. And the third is about within the political party, the reform list is about the fundraising and the spending, transparency of funds. Because what you do not practice within the political parties, transparency of your finance, Yet you would like to see corruption doesn't exist in the country once you are in power. That's a pure contradictions. You are not transparent within your party. You would like to see the state and governance to be transparent. That's simply contradictions. And that's why, because these things doesn't exist within the political parties, they are not reflected into governance when they are in power. So that's the contradictions of biblical scale between the political parties and governance. Now coming to my part of the question, that fundraising and camping cost. Camping is severely expensive in Bangladesh. One of the reasons it is expensive is about the terrain and geography. Because, in the village, in the rural areas, people lives in a bari system, small houses, family homes, and in different locations. And you can imagine like 60, 70 kilometers areas, only 500,000 people lives, 60, 70 kilometers wide. So going to each home or each bari or each spare of locations cost money, and roads are not proper. Often you have to take a boat trawler or a speedboat even, if you can afford it. There are locations in my constituency for within the same sub-district, from same Upojela, we call it, Muladi. From the center of Muladi to the periphery of Muladi, you need 6 hours to reach. There are 3 rivers to cross. There are ferries, there are trawlers to be used. So you can imagine why the voters shall even bother to come to centers, to the polling stations. What incentives the state had given. And for the campaign cost, this is the reality. I have to go there because this is my constituency. There are sandbeds, chor, we call it, dodgens, very isolated areas. How do you go there? And insecure as well. And we have to leave those areas by daylight before the evening falls. So you can imagine the security situation, the cost-wise, the critical reality. That's why we need to have a serious debate on issue like whether we should have a township model areas, the neighborhood we should build, and how the local administration should look like. If a candidate is required to travel 70 miles or 70 kilometers by boats, roads, broken streets, and takes a whole day basically just to reach a single areas, how could you afford to campaign? How to afford to reach out to your own people? You cannot. So the whole state, why we are saying the state needs to be reorganized? Because we do not have a state except flag, territory, some borders, some fishy ideas of institutions, but we do not have really state. There are areas, there is no electricity, there is no internet. I have seen villages drowned underwater every day during the tides. When the jowar happens, every day the street goes underwater for 8 to 10 hours every day. There is no school. Whole generation is illiterate. In 2025, and under the last fascist regime, we have heard that we become Singapore. We became like Canada, Switzerland. So you can imagine the country we are living in now. You see, beyond description, while you live in the bubble of Dhaka or the capital, or the bubble of United Nations of Gulshan and Dhanmondi and Bonani and Baridhara, they are not Dhaka, they are not Bangladesh. We have a different Bangladesh, a rural Bangladesh, absolutely different than the life we see in the capital, Dhaka. So that needs to be changed. Without having that township model neighborhood, you simply cannot adjust campaign cost, security, level playing field, muscle man, violence, arms. You simply can manage without those, in those areas. There are areas in my constituency, 3 districts in the same corner of the river, Madaripur, Shariatpur and Borishal. So the criminals, burglars, bring a man from district, kills him in Borishal, lifts the arms into Madaripur and flees through the speedboat onwards. So now you can imagine the challenges for the law enforcement agencies, how to coordinate. Who is responsible to take the dead bodies to hospital? Who is responsible to collect the arms? Who is responsible to chase the criminals? So this is a very high level criminal zone. Now, without addressing those, how do you address those 30,000 citizens of yours to live and brought back from poverty and lift them out of the life of misery that they have now? You need money, cost. So the tragedy, the irony is, the social media users, the so-called civil society members, the urban upper middle class, they would like to see politicians become like angels without understanding their struggles. That's why I always call the NGO people, why don't you visit my campaign areas? Let's go there. And let's go in the rainy season. See, there are areas simply without boats you cannot access to. There are homes drowned every year. So we feel that reality needs to be understood. Our urban people doesn't understand the country at all. They haven't a clue. So when they criticize politicians, the camping costs, the camping funding, do they really fund camps? Any of those educated social media users have ever addressed me or text me, "Bhai, I really like you. I would like to share some money with you to fund your camp." Nobody. So that's a serious dichotomy. A nation, a country, a state doesn't invest into politics, but would like to see politics like Britain and America. That's a contradiction of expectations. How do you do that? So you do not like to see the criminals, the extortionists, the mercenaries, the oligarchs to be in politics, yet the nation doesn't fund the good people, the brilliant campaigners, the people who are really patriots, who really like to see live in a clean image. How do you do that? It's a clear contradictions. So those are the challenges that we have to face up to it. And that's the reason why politicians become so corrupt in our countries and countries like any third world countries. It's one of the reasons. Reaching out, campaigning becomes so expensive that simply there is no other way to extortion. There is no other way to seek ransom from the businesses. There's no other way to do tendering, illegal tendering, forced tendering from the state. These are the ways why politics became so polluted. So this is one of the ways that I advised, and I called upon the institutions many times. The Election Commission should fund politicians, should bear the cost of election, should bear the cost of bringing people to the polling stations. Election Commission and our state bear no responsibility except writing down, putting up some code of conduct for the parliamentary candidates, as if they shall do everything else. So who is responsible? Access to vote is also a right. Right to vote, because I'm 18, is a right. But because I live in a sandbed, in a chor, which is 6 hours from my polling stations, and I don't have the money to pay for it. 100 taka, 200 taka is a huge lot of money for a lot of people. Lot of money. Because people in this country, why they are sold out to 500 taka, to 1000 taka. Why? Because 100 taka means a lot for them. It's a 2 kg rice. It's enough rice to feed the family a day. So without addressing those core issues, clean image, clean transparency, fund, it is like a very obsolete, one-sided discussion, but it's a very essential discussion at the same time. So what I am doing basically up to now, I'm just reaching out to my close friends, families, who like see I seek funds, helps from them, and it's clearly accountable because this is not a crowd-funded thing, so I do not make any post about it. But from our party funds, all the money are deposited into the party accounts, party Bikash numbers, and they are given, all the donors are given receipts clearly. But the other problem is many of the donors doesn't want to be receiving any like within the donors list. They don't like to receive any receipts. They do not like to be named anywhere in the party books. So transparency requires both sides. I would like to give receipts, but he doesn't would like to receive any receipts. So how do I maintain that transparency? There are people who like to give money in cash. I'll not give money into accounts. Election Commission is saying if it is 50,000 taka, it has to be in the accounts. But they do not like to give 50,000 taka in the party account. So why do make that consensus? I need money, campaign costs money, and the process of receiving money is contradictory between the intention of the donors and the state requirement. So there is no match to it. So these are the challenges that really needs to be addressed and needs to be openly discussed. And the Election Commission had given a maximum 25 lakhs. It's around $20,000 upper limit for a candidate to spend. Now, for anybody who had a minimum experience of election, even the local union council member cost or spends even more than that, $20,000. MP election cost few crores. Anybody with a decent sense of election, how expensive it is. But the Election Commission, but the state has no understanding or even would like to understand even that how expensive it is, how to address the terrain, the geography, the reach out, the distance, what are the challenges, having the people, feeding them out, polling agents, local volunteers, and how the money is spent. Absolutely, there is no sense. The Election Commission doesn't understand it because these bureaucrats, these election commissioners had no clue about politics.